All right, cool. We're live. So, hey, everybody. I'm David Lee. I am a volunteer for a cybersecurity nonprofit, and I'm also a cyber boot camp instructor by day. So I'm coming from the education side of things. And today we have a guest, it's David Yee. And David, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is David Yee. I am a cybersecurity student at university, and I am also a working cybersecurity professional as well.
Awesome. So thanks for coming on, David. And, we've been both volunteering for CSMP for a few months now, and things are really strange with the transition to virtual, everything offsite. And I know you were wrapping up your program. I believe you're wrapping up your bachelor's in cyber, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. Let's go back in time before we talk about what you're doing these days. How'd you get started? I know you served some time in the military.
Oh, yeah, actually. So fresh out of high school, I joined the military, and I started off as a linguist because I also speak Korean. I was stationed out in Korea for about a year, and then I came back stateside, and of course, stateside, there's no Korean mission. So I transitioned to signals intelligence, where I picked up a lot of cyber operations, tools, and skill sets, and that's really where my journey started for cyber.
So back then, you enlisted through just a regular recruit, I assume?
Right.
Or did you go through officer training?
No, I did not. I was just enlisted. I never commissioned or anything like that.
So you enlisted, before you enlisted into the military, did you have any previous IT or any kind of other experiences?
No, not really. I mean, I was straight out of high school when this happened. So nothing, yeah. No real IT experience at that point, aside from the few classes I've taken.
Yeah. Yeah, so you're the traditional military enlisted person that you're that traditional age group, right out of high school. When you enlisted, you went through basic, and did you have a sense of where things were going in terms of your job assignment? How did that all shake down, and how did you end up? Obviously, you mentioned your bilingual abilities, but did you ever see yourself in a security role in the future, or were you just kind of living through it at the time?
At the time, honestly, I was just living through it. And when I came back stateside after my first duty station, I didn't know exactly what I was going to do. And they kind of just sent me to some schools and got me some military certificates to get started on the mission sets that I was doing pertaining to cyber.
Interesting. So you were working with language assignments to start out, and then you transitioned and started working with signals, and I presume a lot of intelligence work.
Correct. That's correct.
Very cool. Do you think any of those skills that you learned in that signal work is attainable on the civilian side, or is that pretty proprietary military stuff?
I would say the concepts behind what we did is stuff that's being taught through uni or boot camps or anything like that. But the tools and the skill sets per se, I mean, it's not your typical Kali, Linux, or Parrot, right? Mm-hmm. Those are very specialized to the military. And, of course, I'm not really at liberty to talk about much of that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I guess in general terms, what level of sophistication do you see in, I guess, military cyber operations versus private sector consultant firms like CrowdStrike or the like? Are they pretty comparable, but just using different toolkits?
I would say they're pretty comparable. The toolkits are about 75% the same, because the military also does employ a lot of Kali tools. Mm-hmm. However, it's that 25% that makes the difference, and I think that's very mission specific. For example, in the military, we would use specialized servers and specialized tools that had ethical hacking tools that are specifically developed for that mission set, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That's something in the security coursework that I teach every day is I try to emphasize with my students is the ability to craft your own tools, or just customized tools to meet your needs of the objective. I think that's huge.
And I think that's going to be prevalent in the future as well as companies are being more cyber savvy. I think that's going to be, people are going to be able to have to be able to write their own scripts and craft their own tools and things like that to be able to protect their companies.
Yeah, I agree. The line between developer and operations is very blurry anymore. So I'm starting to see all those scripting skills come more into play in roles that you just in the past you didn't think about it too much.
Oh no, I absolutely, and I'm a firm believer that here, maybe even 5 to 10 years in the future, every job is going to end up requiring a little bit of coding understanding. Like you won't necessarily have to be proficient with coding, but you have to have some knowledge behind it.
Yeah, and the skill, the levels of skill in coding, there's all kinds of levels, and there's all kinds of languages, and it's kind of intimidating on the outside looking in, like where to even start is like, what language do you learn and what does that journey look like? That's kind of intimidating to think about if you've never touched this kind of tech.
Right.
Yeah. So you went through this signals program through the military, and then talk about what happened after that.
Honestly, after the military, I'm going to be honest with you, I did not want to touch anything that was tech related for a while, and that's just how it goes. You get so mired into that field that after you start feeling burnout, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a big problem in modern day too, or in the civilian sector, not modern day, but the civilian sector also, where there's going to be that high burnout and therefore high turnover. And so I actually went to go study biochemistry for a while.
Oh, cool.
And then I found out, it's cool. The knowledge is interesting. But I just didn't want to work in a lab.
Yeah. I did something similar. Like I was a full-time programmer with a splash of IT. And I was just, coding all day, and then I would have to wait for my scripts to process and be vetted and tested. That's a long grind, and it's not for everybody. And after about a year of that, it was definitely not for me, at least that much programming. But yeah, to your point, I think burnout's a huge deal these days in security.
And I absolutely agree with you that burnout is a huge problem in the tech world.
I actually interviewed several CISOs, Chief Information Security Officers, and they were sharing with me that the average shelf life of that job is about a couple of years.
I could only imagine being responsible for the security of a whole company is incredibly stressful.
Yeah, you're kind of this figurehead that you take all the heat if something major happens. To be fair, I guess you take credit when good things happen too. It just seems really intense, like a really intense job to have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, that's something people should know who are considering these careers is security is it's kind of a grueling experience. It's a long hour kind of day commitment.
Absolutely. And you always have to learn new technologies and keep up with everything. And I think that's the beauty of cyber also, that you're always learning new things. And there's never what I would consider a dull day, right? But
definitely not.
For some people, that's too much, and that is okay.
Yeah, I think it depends on your personality. Like if you are attracted to these like superpowers that you get from learning technology, then you're the type of person that might end up here in this space because you're kind of drawn to that flame, right?
Right. There's definitely more often than not, I see people who are really interested in like puzzles and logic games and things like that, who are also tinkerers. Those are the type of people I often see in the cyber field, because frankly, you're just trying to figure out the most efficient way to defend your system, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's not only in that context either. It's kind of like that whole mindset of how do I break this? Like, how do I get it to do the unintended? Like, It was funny. I watch. Have you ever seen video game speed runs like
Yes. Yes, I have.
AGDQ? Those are so much
Yes.
fun to watch. And I was realizing today, as I was scrolling through all the YouTube comments, that they're literally like using security logic because they're talking about if this exploits patched out or not, and then in the comments they actually use the word exploit, and I just realized that's literally like cybersec. That's like the same thing.
Yeah, no, that is interesting because I definitely do watch a lot of speedrunners,
Yeah.
and it is very interesting how that correlates with
Hmm.
cybersec.
Yeah, like that just hit me today as I was watching. There was this cool documentary as well. Well, I guess a video, but of how the original like Zelda 2 had all of these crazy bugs that let you like blast through the game super fast. And as I watched this, I was like, gosh, that's like hunting for exploits. That's like bug hunting in our side.
Right. I wonder how much money people would have made for bug bounties back then.
Yeah, well, you can't patch it, right? You have to.
I mean, no, right, because video games aren't the same way as they are now. Video
Not
games were
yeah,
completed product back then
yeah,
versus now where you could just over the air download an update, right?
yeah. Now they're alive, just like
Right,
any other software. There's
right,
there's no difference now. They're just other apps. So every app
right,
has these issues that remain to be found. So
right.
I thought that was cool. I wasted tons of my childhood on video games, so that idea really relates to me.
No,
But
absolutely.
like you ended up coming back, so you felt burned out, and then you spent all this time in biology labs, and you got burned out with that as well. What happened
Right.
after that?
After that, I did some soul searching and I was trying to figure out like what am I most passionate about? Where did I have the most fun working? And I think that's the key thing. Where did I have the most fun working? At the time, and even still to this day, I have a lot of buddies who work in the cyber field, except for three-letter agencies in the government, right? And
Hmm.
they're always telling me, hey, you should come back. Like, hey, like, come help us out with this project. So I would get these contracts and I would get these things just to help them out. Help develop a tool or help do a red team engagement or anything like that. And I would get these things. And I just honestly, I just opened myself back up to that opportunity. And it got to the point where I was just like, this is really fun now that I don't have the same level of stress that I did in the military. Because in the military with cyber, a lot of things were life or death, right? But coming back and taking a step away from that and then coming back into the field, I was just like, this is actually really enjoyable. And I'm not, none of my scenarios anymore are life or death. And I just fell back into it. I started pursuing school for this again. And I started doing bug bounties and I do contractual work here and there that comes down my pipeline.
Did you carry a top secret clearance like out of your military service, and do you carry one today?
I did have a TS out of the military, and as of right now, I do not have a security clearance anymore. However, of course, having been someone who's had a security clearance, and as anyone else who's had a security clearance before would tell you, they hold you
Hmm.
to the same standard, regardless of if you do or do not have the security clearance.
Hmm.
But of course, now I just don't get the contracts that are like heavily into the government sector anymore. Now it's more along the civilian sector of contracts because my buddies branch out to contractors and
Hmm.
contractors reach out to me and things like that. So,
Oh yeah, private sector has plenty of security work to go around.
no, for
I,
sure. What wasn't the most recent numbers like something like 1.5 billion security jobs are going to go unfilled by 2026 or something like that?
oh gosh, it was pushing on 3.5
Jeez.
something,
Okay. Yeah.
3.5 billion like worldwide, I think, but North
Yeah.
America. I think your number is North America.
Right. Geez,
Hmm.
yeah, there's a lot of work to be had.
there's a lot of work to do, frankly, based on
Yeah.
my experiences working on computers for businesses and just kind of the nonchalantness of everything in companies that are not subjugated to compliance is like appalling. It's insane.
It,
It's,
it is insane. It's like, you have your IT companies who deal with PCI data and things
mhm.
like that, and then you have your business companies who deal with absolutely nothing. And it's insane how little they care about. Of course, now the dynamic is changing now
It
because there's
is,
more
which is
cyber
great.
threats, which is
Hmm.
great, which just means there's more cyber jobs available to be had, right? But
Hmm.
it is still mind blowing to me how little some of these companies care about things like database security or like hardening their
Well,
net internal network and things like that.
I think I get the sense they care, but they don't they don't go starting up a business and then knowing ahead of time the frameworks like NIST and everything. Like
Right.
I think they have this huge pressing need to stand up this tech and to get the bottom line flowing that it's just not it's hard to work that in if you're a smaller outfit. It usually, falls to your in-house most computer literate person to take a stab at it. So
Right.
it's good that orgs like CISA are out there trying to help folks out with that and help people mature it.
No, absolutely. And it's great that there's cyber boot camp programs and even professional degrees out there now that are helping IT professionals be able to understand more cyber techniques and frankly build that skill base.
Yeah, like what did you see? I know after your time in the military, you started working on these contracts. You started heading closer to security again. What did you see in like other professionals that you noticed when it comes to like hard skills versus soft skills? What have your experiences been like?
I mean, in terms of like hard skills, like coding was, I would say, the most prevalent hard skill because
Hmm.
anyone could spin up a calorie box and start play with the tools and things like that and actually
Hmm.
learn and have a depth of understanding with the tools after a few hours with working it.
Hmm.
Of course, in a secure environment where you're not going to do any harm to anyone, right?
Oh, that's
But the
key.
but the coding is definitely one of those things that's been pressed on to me and pressed on to a lot of
Hmm.
my friends in the industry who and they're just like you have to at least know Python. Like you have to
Hmm.
know how to script, if
Hmm.
anything. And of course, then they go on to talk about like assembly language and like C and C++ plus plus and various different types of language. But just knowing a language is
Hmm.
huge. Um, and going back to soft skills, for soft skills, I think the biggest, most prevalent one would be just that willingness to learn and gather more information.
Hmm.
Frankly, like although cyber is a very serious thing, cyber is also very much like a logic puzzle because you're
Hmm.
trying to break it or trying to figure out how to prevent someone from breaking it, right? And you have all the tools out there to be able to figure that out.
Yeah, it's weird how we've evolved into like more open source, more sharing and collaboration. Kind of interesting to see the industry change like that.
Yeah,
But you headed in back into these, I guess, private sector contracts and started working these odd jobs. And then you decided to pick up your bachelor's next. Is that right?
that's correct.
Hmm.
I figured I needed a degree, and I'm currently working towards some like security certifications as well. And it was to help me when I started my bachelor's. It was definitely more to help me get a bigger breadth of knowledge in terms of cyber theory. And I because
Hmm.
coming from the military where I was very specialized in one specific type of network and one specific type of attack vector, or to having to be able to utilize all the tools and understand basically the majority of networking paths and things like that, I figured a degree would be a good place to start for myself.
Yeah, it's funny. I saw a post on LinkedIn this morning. This German fellow, some kind of computer engineer, was talking about how a bachelor's in Germany is like heavily technical, and he said he spent a few years and only finished a small fraction of the program because it was just this gargantuan, highly technical undertaking, versus here in the States, a bachelor's or a master's can be any form of that, right? Like it could be really technical or it could be all the way the opposite.
Right. And I think it really depends on the university's focus because,
Hmm.
of course, there are certain universities that pump out PhD level academic thinkers, right?
Hmm.
And then there's other universities that are like, we're going to pump out working, or we're going to create working class professionals. So we need the technical skills. And I think that's going to be the biggest difference in amongst the American universities and colleges.
Hmm. Yeah, I really hope that the universities start hitting that sweet spot with all of these programs that are coming out. It's a big wave, like right now, is like getting the right training that the market needs, and getting achieving that one-to-one correlation that's a big undertaking. That's something I've been knee deep in that for like all of 2020, basically, is understanding the exact skills that people need. And that's tough. It's hard.
It is tough, and I think it's up to a lot of the smaller universities, not necessarily the bigger research schools, but the smaller universities who have that ability to kind of flow with the times to create programs or modify their programs to be able to reach that one-to-one need.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, you know, we're at this point in industry where we're trying to fill that gap between entry level and like just leaving college or university with a bachelor's and entry level. And I think we're trying to make it to that point where entry level cyber will be equivalent to having a bachelor's degree or going through a boot camp or something like that.
Hmm.
And I'm excited to see where that goes.
I hope so. Yeah, I hope it gets there because I just had a friend finish some kind of security IT hybrid bachelor's, but have no certs. And now he's kind of concerned because, that's a big investment of his time and resources, and trying to understand what the missing ingredient there is to start working, right? To start getting that entry level position. So I really hope the people working on this problem, I hope we figure it out soon.
No, absolutely. It's unfortunate that we see new students who have newly graduated professionals who have these bachelors in cybersecurity and
Hmm.
who have these certificates for boot camps or even just certificates in general end up having to work like an IT help desk position to
Hmm.
start with. And it's really unfortunate because that's wasting their time and the company's time and
Hmm.
money because the company is not utilizing this trained professional to the best of their abilities. And the trained professional is not probably not enjoying his work as much versus doing like a junior level cybersecurity analyst gig or something.
Hmm. Yeah, I've heard even horror stories of people finishing with bachelor's and master's in security and then getting stuck, like not finding work, and then having to actually go sit for the CISSP, pass it, then now that they're able to put that word on their resume, then the offers start appearing.
Yeah,
Painful.
that is unfortunate, and that is one of the reasons why the modern resume system is kind of broken for cybersecurity professionals because
Hmm.
it's someone in
Really sad.
HR who doesn't know the skills, so they're looking at you hear the horror stories even on the programmer side where they need to have 15 years of experience on a system or a technology that's only existed for 5 years.
Hmm.
You hear
Yeah.
horror stories like that. It's like I was reading a a thing from a paper from the guy who created Angular, and he was like, "Yeah, I can't get a job doing Angular work, but I created it. But apparently, I
Wow.
don't have enough experience in Angular, so I can't get a job."
Gosh, I mean, that just goes back to the importance of networking. Like that's
No,
really, man.
no, absolutely. Yeah, that's rough, and I feel for the people who just graduated who are looking at the job market, and the job market's asking for CISSP or SCP, and all these crazy professional level certs, like doctorate level certs, and it's just it's bonkers.
Yeah. Um, yeah. All the programs I've gone through that are traditional academic, like state recognized, like they never had enough of that. Like they never explained to me how networking leads to jobs. So that's a whole another thing that needs to, um, that needs to be kind of put in the forefront too, especially with this broken system of ours. It's kind of unicorn job posting syndrome.
Right. And and yeah, it's to a fault the universities also, because they don't foster this networking environment, right? They
Hmm.
care about the grade and they care about the
Hmm.
material, but they don't care about also the extracurriculars, right? Such as networking. It's
Yeah.
like I've been to universities where they only have a host a job fair once a year,
Yeah. That
and
was, yep.
it's that's crazy.
I went through that
No,
myself. Yeah. And I just thought it was like optional.
right,
Oh, man. In hindsight, gosh, everything's so clear.
right. I mean,
So, man, so knowing that, like you're going through a bunch of things, right? So you're still wrapping up your bachelor's, you're chasing a few certifications. Like, what's your strategy moving forward here?
I don't know. Honestly, right now, aside from my schoolwork and my studies, in. I have a mission to meet at least one cybersecurity professional in the industry in my area a week.
Hmm,
And
that's smart.
there's a certain professional networking tool that everyone uses online, that I've been reaching out to recruiters, and just informational interviews. Like that's a big
Hmm.
thing. Just asking them what they do, and most people are open to hosting that type of interview, where you could just sit down and have a cup of coffee with them. Of course, now due to the pandemic, it's a cup of coffee through a digital screen. But
Hmm.
you sit down and you can talk to them about what they do and how they got there and things like that. And I think that's key. Like, I think networking is going to be a big factor in the future as well.
Yeah, that's been like our response to the whole broken hiring system is just, taking it as a networking first approach. And I think your strategy that's a good plan. It's a nice, like achievable plan to execute. Well,
There's
cool.
also there's also a lot of conventions going on and things like that. So
Oh,
I've been
yeah.
attending, I'll be at B-Sides 2020 here in Seattle soon.
Hmm.
And and there's a lot of other conventions. I was just at ShellCon yesterday, and there's just a plethora of conventions that people can go, and a lot of them are free. And you could just
Hmm.
go and talk to people and meet new people on different walks of life, right?
Yeah, like the biggest, like the one convention that I went to when I was kind of exploring this whole field, like that changed my life forever, basically. Like it blew my mind how big this whole industry really is, like how important this is. So, like, yeah, like if you're out there and if you've never gone to a security like convention event like this, like you've got to see it for yourself to believe it, to
No,
appreciate it.
absolutely. Absolutely. And you get to meet industry professionals from across the world and what they do and what their interests are. And that will definitely help curate your tastes in the cyber
Hmm.
world as well.
Yeah, I met a fellow from Australia of all places at the last convention I was at, and he went through the same experiences that I went through, and he even like he kind of mentored me on the spot. Like he he helped me draw a plan for my organization and like the next steps. I thought that was just amazing. Like I'd never experienced that, like a kind of on the spot mentorship. So gosh, yeah, I'm definitely also keeping an eye on B-sides. I'm waiting for that schedule to come up shortly here, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, it's only a couple weeks away, and I'm really hoping the schedule comes out soon, right?
Yeah. I've budgeted that whole Saturday, so definitely want to see who's all presenting and everything. Very excited.
Yeah, my family's very bummed that I'll be sitting in front of a computer all day.
I'm used to it. I've kind of taken this all in stride. Yeah, I miss the old days for sure. It feels like so long ago.
Well, we'll all get through this, right?
Yeah, I for sure. Yeah, no, most definitely. Well, that's about time. Thanks for coming on, David. And if someone wants to connect with you online or reach out to you, how do they go about that?
You could find me on LinkedIn. My end URL is David H. Yee. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's David H. Yee. I'm available on LinkedIn, and I'm very easy to approach. Just shoot me a message, and I will do my best to get back to you within like 2 hours.
Yeah, I can vouch for that. Yeah, David's super responsive, and I think that's almost a rare trait. Yeah, these days.
Well, so. I don't like waiting for other people, and I can only imagine what others are like. So definitely. I try my best to respond as soon as possible.
Definitely. Cool, David. Thanks for popping in.
Cool. Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, take care.